Not what you were expecting, hmm?
The MCU just went all in on their next big multiversal war phase by introducing Kang the Conqueror to really shake things up.
I like it.
Sure, he's not credited as Kang, probably since this isn't the main Kang that we're about to meet in future storylines, but it's definitely the most important character introduction the MCU has ever done.
She's still calling me now.
So what exactly is next for Kang, and where will he pop up next? Well, let's take a look at all the movies and TV shows Kang could appear in and what that means for the future of the MCU. Let's get started.
Come on, let's talk.
Let's start with the most obvious one. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania has only two things known about it. The first is that Louise will give another long monologue recapping events because that's a given at this point. The other is that Jonathan Majors will be playing Kang the Conqueror. This isn't huge, groundbreaking news. We've known Majors would be playing Kang in the film for a while now, and the question, as soon as Loki started premiering and the Timekeepers were introduced, soon became whether Kang would show up a bit sooner than initially announced. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. I mean, sort of. Majors' character in Loki is never named to be Kang, and he's credited as
He Who Remains.
Which means that the Kang that will show up in Ant-Man 3 is going to be different than the one we just saw. Which makes sense given both his monologue explaining different variants of himself as well as the knife that's now sitting in his chest. So having Kang be the potentially main villain of Quantumania is interesting for a few reasons. For one, it's going to be hilarious watching Ant-Man interact with the potentially most powerful villain in the MCU's history, but also the choice to include Kang here means that the quantum realm is going to be extremely important going forward. Not that it wasn't already, but after Endgame, you could see the MCU maybe dropping the quantum realm in favor of multiversal travel. But now it looks like the very key to hopping different dimensions will be the quantum realm. Sorry, Scott, you're still in the middle of everything. Look, absolutely everyone is returning in Spider-Man No Way Home. Doc Ock, Electro, most likely probably the other Spider-Man, potentially Green Goblin, probably that one receptionist in Spider-Man 2 who wouldn't pay for the pizza.
Pizza time.
Everyone. So why couldn't Kang make an appearance? He probably should, given everything we know about the movie. It looks like Peter's going to go off on his own Spider-Verse adventure with Doctor Strange where things go horribly wrong. I would bet Peter gets a little lost or Doctor Strange is incapacitated for a lot of the movie so the focus can remain on Peter. An interesting way to fit Kang into this story is by having the villain be the one who separates Spider-Man from Doctor Strange and sets up the reunion between all the main Spider-Men. This could either be done indirectly or directly. If it's indirectly, Kang could just be moving through multiverses, conquering stuff left and right, and that causes the walls of the Spider-Verse to come crumbling down, leading to an epic adventure. But on the other hand, if Kang was directly involved, we could get a little meta here. What better way to show the awesome might and power of Kang than for Kang to be purposefully combining all three main Spidey universes together because he doesn't want to deal with the headache of keeping track of all three of them anymore. That'd be kind of cool, right? If Loki was the most important TV show for Marvel's future, then Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is the most important movie by far. We know it's going to continue the threads left in WandaVision, with Scarlet Witch being a main character in the film and presumably on a quest to find her children, and now there's word that Loki will be in the film as well. Out of all the projects on this list, this Doctor Strange sequel is probably the one where you need Kang the most. Now, I could say he should be the main villain, but given how this comes out a year before Quantumania, I don't think that'll be the case. So rather, Kang just needs to have a presence in this movie, but not necessarily a big role. If anything, this is the movie where we could have our big Kang introduction scene that leads into a bigger role in Ant-Man 3. With Loki now involved, maybe the God of Mischief will be the one to catch Strange up on all the happenings of his TV show, with the explanation of how he's now erased and Kang variants are fighting with one another. Maybe Doctor Strange will even have to fight one of these Kang variants before meeting the actual Kang. Remember how in the first three phases, none of our heroes ever interacted with Thanos before Infinity War, really? Well, Phase 4 could do things differently, with having Strange meet Kang early on and just almost die in the process by meeting someone so powerful. This could spur Strange to get the ball rolling on recruiting and prepping other Avengers for the incoming Multiversal War and give them all an agency that they lacked in earlier films when it came to the big threat. Plus, could you imagine a fight between the Sorcerer Supreme and a 31st century time traveler? That'd be awesome. With He Who Remains explaining his history and his other variants, it's practically a given that he would tie into the upcoming Fantastic Four project. As He Who Remains mentions, a variant of him lived in the 31st century and discovered that the universes were basically like a big sandwich, stacking on top of one another, and all his other variants were discovering the same thing in different universes. So, originally in the comics, this was Nathanial Richards, who was a descendant of Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic. I think it's safe to say that the MCU will try to simplify Kang's complicated character history as well as his connection with Reed. But by exploring that lineage, the MCU is positioned to make Reed Richards one of the most important players in the upcoming Multiversal War. The dramatic weight behind having a character who knows his bloodline will produce a variant of a villain that threatens to destroy everything ever is just too good of an opportunity to pass up. It seems like the best option for the Fantastic Four movie would be to have one of these multiverse branches already have the Fantastic Four in it and skip the backstory. That way you could more easily get into the conflict between Mr. Fantastic and Kang and set up a rivalry that will define this huge multiverse arc. One big thing that the MCU has subtly started making important throughout Phase 4 is the concept of the Young Avengers. WandaVision gave us Wiccan and Speed. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier gave us a brief look at Eli Bradley, who we know becomes Patriot. And then Loki introduced us to Kid Loki, who very specifically was set up as the most powerful Loki due to him killing Thor, but then, tellingly, put him away from danger and out of the story by the end of Episode 5. If you look at all that together, the logical conclusion is that the Young Avengers are coming. And if you didn't think Kang could be a part of this, you're mistaken. As He Who Remains mentioned, there are a lot of variants of himself running around, and I think that means we're going to meet a lot of different versions of Kang in the next few years. Most of them are probably bad, but there are a handful of good ones too. This could lead to Iron Lad, who is a variant of Kang that joins the Young Avengers with an advanced Iron Man-style suit. Putting a good Kang variant on a superhero team would help mass audiences understand that not all Kangs are similar, and create an interesting storyline where a lot of people don't trust Iron Lad because of his multiversal brethren. She-Hulk promises to be something different in the MCU, with a focus on more legal shenanigans than outright superhero world-ending threats. But are we in for a swerve? There is a storyline in the She-Hulk comics where She-Hulk is put on trial at the TVA. We know that the TVA is now still active and looks to be under Kang's control. So could we potentially see an ending of She-Hulk where, after her series ends, a post-credit scene sees her arrested by the TVA and put on trial herself in front of Kang in Season 2? I think that's a solid setup. Spend the first season establishing her as a lawyer with her unique skill set, then in the season finale, blow everything up and put her on trial for something related to the multiverse. Talk about escalation, right? Moon Knight is going to be one of the most fascinating additions to the MCU thanks to his unique personality and darker undertones. I don't think Kang will have much of an influence on Moon Knight right away, but just like the MCU, I'm thinking long term. Once Moon Knight and Kang are established, I think it would be fun to highlight that one time Moon Knight fought Kang. It was a special one-off comic for sure that couldn't happen in the main timeline, but we also know Marvel's What If is getting a Season 2 in the future. They could easily have one episode of What If follow Moon Knight as he travels across time hunting Kang the Conqueror with hilarious results. Those are the kind of stories What If is made for.
And that's the gambit.
I guess we have to stop making Mephisto jokes, right? Marvel probably looked at the backlash of not introducing Mephisto in WandaVision and quickly said, hey, yeah, definitely put Kang in that Loki finale. Could you imagine the backlash if it wasn't Kang? We'd have our own Multiversal War. Scary to think about.